Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to another edition of the Papa D's Cooking Show. I'm sure very often you've walked into the supermarket and you see these beautiful greens always presented there for your soups. But you don't even touch them. And why? Because you know this is a 2-hour job. If you've got to get into preparing a fresh vegetable soup, you're going to need like 2 hours minimum. And if you're adding meat to it, then you've got to add another 2 hours to that. So it's almost a 4-hour thing. I'm going to just go through some of our ingredients here, and then you can see how easy it is to prepare a beef and vegetable soup. If you want vegetable only, that's your pleasure. But this is what I'm using. I'm also using bony meat. So firstly, I have to adhere to that golden rule of Indian cooking, and that is that you should always braise your meat before you start cooking. I've got my lid open now. Now, I'm using the stove as a conventional stove as well as a pressure cooker. So it doesn't mean that because it's a pressure cooker, I just have to throw everything in and boil it. But I'll show you how, by multitasking, I'm just putting a little bit of oil in here. And also, the ingredients are very minimal on this dish. All right? So while I've already put I'm just going to turn my machine on without really placing it on time. So now my pot is beginning to warm up. And I'm going to just place my meat in. I'm using bony meat. Also remember, if you really want that rich stock, you can add soup bones. You've heard that before, where you go to your butcher and they have soup bones available. So you could do that. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to roughly chop everything up. So you don't need to really try and be a professional chef and cut everything finely. I'm just using it very roughly chopped. So I'm just giving my meat a little stir around. You see, the nice thing here is that, you know, as I've mentioned on other programs as well, if you're cooking a proper curry, then you'll notice, see how nicely the meat is searing already on the one side. So you see, I've actually used this as a conventional cooker as well as a pressure cooker. So I didn't have to say, let me do phase 1 on my stove and then come back here. So this is done. I'm going to add, for this soup, because it's so mildly spiced, the main ingredients are really pepper and salt. But just for the little bit of oomph, I'm putting a little bit of ginger garlic paste, like half a teaspoon. And then I'm adding the salt, about a teaspoon of it, because you can always add that later. You can add more salt later. Now, pepper is quite overwhelming, so I'm using half a teaspoon of the coarse black pepper, and I'm only using a 1/4 teaspoon of the fine white pepper, and I'll use a whole teaspoon of aromat. That'll actually give me a nice texture on the end. I'm going to give it a bit of a stir around. And the minute the spices hit here, you already get the aromas coming through. The guys in the studio are already waiting for the meal to come out. So my meat is ready, and now I'm going to start adding my vegetables. It doesn't matter which order you put them in, but I prefer putting the onions first. There's another little tip. You'd wonder, why have I got 2 white containers here? Now, it's very important that when you're working, don't keep the 2 close by, because you could get confused quite easily. It happened to me once when we were doing a Chinese dish, and we used something else in place of the Chinese salt. This here is actually bicarbonate of soda, and this I'm going to use in my veggies. Once the water is in, I'm going to add this in. It will retain the colors of the vegetables. So very little, it's not for taste or anything, but it'll actually enhance and retain the colors of the veggies. My carrots are ready. I can let that go in. Roughly chopping up my celery. Use them with the stems because that's where the flavor is. Because at the end of it, I think the most dominant flavor in the soup comes from your celery and a little bit from your turnip. So the turnip as well, just going to cut off the crown a bit. A little bit of parsley is always nice in a soup as well. So I'm just going to give that a rough chop. But ultimately, the idea is when I finish with this, to get that smooth texture, I'm going to be using my Phillips blender to give it a smooth consistency, and then there will be the last ingredient that I'll add in, and that I'll show you when we get there. I'm adding in a bit of dhania as well. This is always nice, very aromatic. Use it with the stems. Now remember, a lot of the juices will be coming out of the vegetables as well. So what I'm doing here now is I'm just going to add the water to this, and then I can close my little machine. And what I've done is I've just immersed all my veggies in the water. So my water level is just above all my ingredients. And I'm going to close this up because I'm using beef, and I want the beef to be fully done, and I want my veggies also to be done completely. I'm going to put this in for 40 minutes. Remember, if you're not using beef, the cooking time will be less. There we have it. My machine's closed. Always remember it's in seal position here. And then I'm going to put my timer onto 35 minutes. Because I've already been cooking for around 5 minutes. So I've put the timer on for 35 minutes. And that's it. Now I can go out and have a coffee and do whatever else I want. And this little boy will carry on looking after my cooking for me. And when it's done, I don't have to stress and get here on time to depressurize it. It'll automatically depressurize, and more so, it'll remain on the stay warm position, which means whenever I come, my broth will be ready and warm. Well, there we are. Our 40 minutes are up. And I just want to take your attention to this valve. This thing has been cooking for 40 minutes. That's just about how much steam's coming out of here now. Can you see the texture of all the veggies? They're all fully done. Just to show you, your potatoes usually are hard, but as you can see, that's gone soft. Carrots are usually hard. That's gone soft. And most importantly, the meat. Again here, meat is coming right off the bone. Now, you could actually serve this just like this if you like your veggies whole, but what I want is a smooth vegetable soup. So what I'm going to do now is just remove the veggies from here and put them into my little Phillips blender here and blend them and smoothen it to a consistency that I like. And then of course, once that's done, I'll pour it back into here, and that's when I'll add in my thick vegetable soup, which is a packet soup, and this will then blend everything together. You'll notice everything is still very apart. Each ingredient is completely separate, right? So I want to bring them all together so that all the flavors are mixed at one time when you take a dollop of the soup. You can decide what consistency you like. If you don't want it too fine, that's okay. I'm not going to make it too fine. I still want some texture in the soup. As you can see, it's already coming together now. So what I'll do now is remove the soup from here and add it back into the pot. And that's when I'll add the thickener in. Back into the pot. That's done. Already you can see all the ingredients are already coming together. The texture is much nicer now. But just to finish it off, give it that shine and hold them all nicely together, I'm going to add in some thick vegetable soup. That's actually the packet soup. For that amount, I'm going to use around 2 spoons. But remember to mix this in cold water, otherwise it's going to become lumpy. I made that into a fine mixture. Added it in there. Give it a nice stir. Now, for the ingredients of the packet soup to activate, they actually need heat. I'm just going to close this cooker again for about 5 minutes. Just going to put it on there for 5 minutes. Close the pressure valve, and I can set that aside, and now I can start preparing for my presentation. So here we are, my soup's ready, my 5 minutes are up, and I'm just waiting for it to depressurize. In the meantime, I'm going to call Chef Proud along to help us garnish our plate and present our beef and vegetable soup. Proud, if you can come through. So here we have it, our beef and vegetable soup. I've served it with toasted bread and butter and lemon if you like. And I'm sure you'll enjoy this one on that cold, wintry night. So from us at Papa D's in Fordsburg, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.